Hey guys, Unsmooth Criminal. I'm currently half asleep because it's late at night at my house. It's 10:18. So if I'm a little quieter than usual, it's because my parents are trying to go to sleep. But I have to get this idea out of my head or I'll lose it and you guys won't be able to hear this idea. So, this is what if Deku was a beastly swordswoman or swordsman. The general term is swordsman, but for those people who want her to be called a swordswoman, she will. So we go to an operating room, and the nurses and doctors are scrambling because this child is not coming out, so they have to do a C-section. And the C-section goes horribly wrong when the child that has claws comes out and stretches and accidentally stabs a vital organ of her mother, and she is immediately the room to taken to a room to have her quirk evaluated, and she looks like right now she kind of has a skin tone of one of those Egyptian cats that have no hair. That's what her skin tone looks like right this second. Except for her face, she has the dyed eye areas and pale face. And we're going to skip 4 years when her quirk officially activates. And she's been hit, abused, beaten, raped, molested, groped, you name it, that has happened to her. Because her father doesn't care. He sees her as a curse because his wife was all that he cared about. He doesn't even care about his own daughter. He's thrown himself into drinking. He's drunk 90% of the time at home. He can't even look at his daughter without wanting to beat the crap out of her. And one day, he takes her to the quirk doctor, steps out of the car, and completely forgets why he is there. Because he's also drunk. So he hops back in the car and drives off. Izumi, who has a rag over her, basically like just a big shirt, and no shoes, no socks, just a shirt on, walks into the doctor's office, and she signs herself in, and she's used to signing herself into the hospital now. So she signs herself in, and the quirk doctor comes out and calls her name. And she walks in, and the quirk doctor asks where is her parents, and Izumi says, "You mean that asshole that takes care of me? Yeah, he left me here." And she has a very aggressive personality because everybody who's showing her kindness normally wants something from her. So he goes, "Okay, let me just touch your forehead for a few seconds and then I'll be done and I'll know what your quirk is." And she goes, "Good. So get out of here and not have to deal with anybody." And the doctor's like, "Okay." So he puts his hand on her forehead, and she's squirming the entire time while his hand is on her forehead. 5 seconds later, he takes his hand off and says, "You are a swordsman." And she looks at him like he's crazy, and he goes, "Your quirk is based on a sword. I don't know the full details, but I know that you have a swordsman quirk. And the name of your quirk is Beastly Swordsman. Or in your case, Swordswoman." And she goes, "Okay, thank you," and leaves. Later that day, she walks to her home, grabs a change of clothes that barely fit her, and walks out. She walks to the police station and is like, now that I actually have something to show for this and show that I'm not completely useless, they'll actually talk to me. So she walks into the police station. She does have cat-like ears, cat-like eyes, and a feline uh, movement to her. So she walks in, and the dog chief of the area, or chief of the police station, walks up to her and asks, what is she doing here and what can he do for her? And she says, I'm here to report child abuse and to get someone arrested. And he's like, okay, we need evidence to arrest them, and who are you reporting? And she goes, my asshole of a father. And the chief goes, okay, we need evidence, and I shall drive you to the hospital for a checkup to see if there's any bruises or damage to your body significant enough to um, warrant arresting him. And she goes, no need. I have been raped. I have been groped. I've been molested. I've been beaten. I have anything you can think of. I've had that happen. And the chief's eyes start to widen while she's saying this. And he goes, okay, give me 1 minute and I'll help. And he calls all of the heroes that are willing to adopt mutation quirk people. And the only one that actually shows up, because he immediately says that she has a feline mutation quirk. And the only one that shows up is Aizawa. Aizawa walks in and asks, where is she? I can take her in and raise her to be a hero. And he points out Izumi, and the chief goes, okay, this is the person who's going to take care of you after we put your father behind bars. And Aizawa gets the rundown from the chief, and he's like, okay. So he takes Izumi to his home, and she walks into her room, locks the door, and lays on her bed and slowly falls asleep. Once her eyes shut, she relives all the terrible things that have happened to her. And she starts crying. And Aizawa, walking upstairs to tell his wife what happened and to be quiet around Izumi and not make complete physical contact without her permission, hears the crying and is like, oh God, please don't let it be like one of those. And he walks in and sees that she's asleep, crying. So he walks up to her and hugs her while she's asleep. A few minutes later, she stops crying and slowly wakes up and feels a warm embrace and feels the touch of somebody and starts to squirm, even though she feels comfortable in it, because she still doesn't like the touch of people. So Aizawa lets go and backs up and holds his hands up like he's surrendering. And he's like, you were crying, so I just thought you needed a hug. And she starts stuttering and says thank you and that she doesn't need a hug anymore and he can go. So Aizawa says, if you need anything, I'm here to help. And that's my job. I'm a pro hero. And Izumi, hearing that he's a pro hero, starts to break down crying again and spills everything that has happened to her and how her father said that she was the one that killed her mother and all that. And Aizawa, who was curious about the mother story, after he leaves on patrol, he asks the cops to look into the death of a pregnant woman of hmm, yeah, I'm gonna say it's the Midoriya's of Inko Midoriya, and they go, sure thing, but why? And Aizawa says that the kid that he's taking care of might have accidentally killed her mother during birth. And they're like, oh God, please don't let that actually be how that happened. And so he goes out and patrol, and when he gets back to the police station after patrol, they say that sadly she was the one that accidentally pierced a vital organ for her mother in her mother and killed her mother. And Aizawa looks down thinking, I'm going to have to tell her that it was a accident because babies normally stretch and try to grab things when they're young, and since she didn't know she had claws, she accidentally ripped some of her organs and killed her. So Aizawa gets to his home and sees that Izumi has not left her room, and the plate of food that was left at her door has not been touched. So he walks up to the door, puts his ear against the door, and just hears mumbling. He knocks on the door and he doesn't get a response, and then a few seconds later he unlocks the door and opens the door to see Izumi crouched in a corner, rocking back and forth, trying not to have a panic attack. And Aizawa's like, oh God, what is it now? He texts his wife to grab the trank, and his wife texts back, what do you mean grab the trank? And Aizawa rushes to the room as fast as possible and says, Izumi's having a panic attack and we need to calm her down. So grab the uh, tranquilizer, just enough to see if will calm down. A few seconds later, Aizawa walks to the door and uses the blowgun to shoot her with a trank dart, and she calms down is and without knowing it is starting to cry and relive the horrid things that has happened to her. And Aizawa hugs her again and she stops crying and she's still asleep. He lays her on the bed and leaves her alone. When she wakes up, she gets up and sees a note that says, if you want to talk, I'm ready to talk. I have some information for you that is needed for you to hear, that you need to hear. And she sees that the information that you need to hear and is like, okay, better leave this room. And she walks into her bathroom and cleans herself up because she does have cold sweats at night and she does sweat a lot because of her fur. So she walks downstairs and meets up with Aizawa, and Aizawa says, I have information on what killed your mother. And Izumi looks down and says, I already know. I was the one who killed her. And he goes, it wasn't your fault. And Izumi goes, what do you mean it wasn't my fault? It was my claws that scratched her organs and made her bleed to death. And he goes, no, it wasn't your fault. And she goes, yes, it was. I was the one who killed her. And he goes, no, it wasn't. Damn doctors didn't pay attention to you. And he she's currently yelling at him, and he's just in a stern voice going, it's not your fault. And she just keeps raising her voice like, it was my fault. Then he goes, the damn doctors, it's their fault because they didn't even try to save her. And Izumi, hearing that, starts to break down crying, because if they tried to save her mother, she might have been here today and she might have had a normal life. And Aizawa finally asks the question that he's had since he met her. What is her quirk? And Izumi says, I am a swordswoman, a beast, a beastly swordswoman. And Aizawa raises Aizawa's eyes widen, going, so you're the kid who got the quirk? And she goes, what do you mean I got the quirk? And Aizawa goes, there was a rumor going around that there was a powerful double S ranked quirk and from one kid that had a mutation that could summon a sword and could easily outspeed the fastest heroes, including some of the heroes in comic books that had used to be printed and released out into the public, like the Flash or Godspeed from the Flash comic books. And she's like, what? And he goes, these spots on your fur are cheetah spots. And she goes, yeah, I've known that. And he goes, do you know what cheetahs are uh, normally known for? And she goes, speed. And he goes, yeah. Your mutation probably gave you some of those abilities. And then he says, like Mirako, she can jump, she can kick really freaking hard. And then he says, and Ryuko has the strength of a dragon when she's in dragon form, and she's in human form, she has double her normal strength. Double a normal human strength. And Izumi goes, oh, okay, and what about the sword part? And Aizawa goes, I'm sorry I can't help you with that, but I may be able to find you an instructor to teach you sword styles, and I may be able to get you styles of swords to find which one you're comfortable with. And if your sword allows you to summon your perfect sword, then we can train that. But if it doesn't, then oh well. So the next few days, Izumi has been coming out of her room and eating a little bit and then going back to her room and resting. And she starts to slowly open up to Aizawa, and Izumi still hasn't seen Aizawa's wife. And one day, Izumi walks out and says, Aizawa, are you there? And he doesn't respond. And Izumi starts getting worried, like, where is he? What happened to him? Because she's starting to trust him slightly. And she runs downstairs at very quick speed for her age and looks around and sees a woman. And she walks up behind the woman and asks who she is, and this woman says she is Miss Aizawa. But my hero name is Miss Joke. And Izumi goes, oh, isn't your quirk to make others laugh? And Miss Joke goes, yeah. What most news broadcasters say is my quirk is always active, but that's a lie. My quirk only activates when I want it to activate. And she says a small joke while activating her quirk, and Izumi can't help but giggle at it. And and smile. And Miss Joke says, "You're cute when you smile. You should do it more often." And Izumi feels a little flustered because she's never been complimented like that. And then she asks, while still having a slight smirk on her face, because she can't help but feel a little giddy and happy that she had a laugh for the first time in her entire life. And Miss Joke says that Aizawa's on patrol right now because he was called in a little early and he'll be back in a few minutes, maybe a little longer. And Izumi says, "Then what's for dinner?" And Miss Joke goes, "Oh, I don't know. Want to eat out or have delivery?" And Izumi goes, "Can we have meat?" And Joke goes, "Yeah, we can have meat." Um, then Miss Joke is like, "Does she eat raw or cooked?" And I wrote down her main weakness, and that is chicken. Not just any kind of chicken. It'll be special kind of chicken. And Joke pulls out two things of meat. One was pre-cooked and refrigerated, and one was not cooked and refrigerated. And she asked Izumi which one would she prefer, and Izumi points at the cooked food and says, "Can you warm it up? I prefer room temperature food than normal hot food or cold food." And Miss Joke goes, "Okay, I'll warm it up to room temp." And so Miss Joke goes to the microwave and warms it up just enough to be room temperature and hands it to Izumi, and Izumi immediately scarfs it down like it's gonna run away from her. And Izumi goes, "What the hell was that? That was delicious." And Miss Joke goes, "That was a special blend of spices on a thing of chicken." And Izumi goes, "What is chicken?" And Miss Joke goes, "You don't know what chicken is?" And Izumi goes, I've only ever been fed raw meat. I was never given fresh food before." And Joke is shocked and asks, "And what did your parents feed you before you came here?" And Izumi goes, "Scraps. My father fed me scraps." And Joke sees the anger filling Izumi's eyes and sees that Izumi's claws have come out sharper and are now digging into her palm. So Joke puts her hands out for a hug, and Izumi reluctantly starts walking towards Miss Joke. And Miss Joke slowly embraces Izumi warmly, and Izumi slowly hugs her back, and they have a touching moment. Then Miss Joke says, "How about this? I make you another one of those chickens, a whole chicken this time, and you tell me how what you want to be when you grow up." And Izumi goes, "Okay, I haven't really thought of that." And Joke goes, "You have until I'm done cooking the chicken." And she pulls out a chicken that hasn't been brined yet or seasoned, and she puts it in a bag and puts the special blend of spices and herbs and some kind of liquid in there and shakes it up and lets it sit at room temperature for an hour. Then puts the this is going to be a different way to cook it. I don't know how to actually cook the chicken properly. And then puts the chicken into the oven for a little bit so it gets up to body temperature. And with the brine getting up a little bit up to boiling temperature, then he pours on the brine so it soaks in a little bit more. And when it's done, chicken's cooked thoroughly through, she lets it sit on the counter and in a warm area on the counter so it doesn't completely cool down to freezer temperature. And Izumi smells the chicken and her mouth starts to water, and Miss Joke walks out and asks, "Have you thought about it yet?" And Izumi goes, "Yeah, I'd like to stop people from doing what they did to me. And I don't know how to do that besides just going around to every household and either hurting or killing the people that have done this to me." And Jokes asks, "What do you mean killing? You shouldn't be killing." And Izumi goes, "Oh," and looks down sad, and Joke goes, Have you killed before?" In a sweet tone, and Izumi just slowly nods her head, and Joke is like, "It's okay. You don't have to kill anymore." And Joke asks, "Who have you killed?" And Izumi says, "I've killed my mother and a few people who were raping me and doing bad things to me." And you keep in mind, Izumi has been learning from the street. She hasn't gone to school. Nobody knows about her besides some of the pro heroes that have been told about her. And she has a deathly fear of strangers. Well, right now at least. Izumi was Izumi has heightened senses, so she smelled Miss Joke but never saw her. So she got used to the scent, and when she saw Miss Joke, she placed the scent. So that's why she didn't freak out. And Miss Joke says, "Okay, I will tell Aizawa and he will talk to you later about this and how he will teach you and what will happen later in life." And Izumi nods her head slowly and looks down sad. Miss Joke goes, "I think it's about ready." And Izumi goes, "About what's about ready?" And Miss Joke goes, "Your chicken." And Izumi, he his eyes start sparkling again, be like, "Chicken, chicken, chicken, chicken." And Aizawa walks in the door holding a strangely shaped sword and a mask. And Izumi is currently bouncing up and down like a normal little child and is muttering "chicken" over and over and over again. And Aizawa walks into the room and sees this and is like, "The hell happened to her?" And Joke walks out with a giant chicken, or not giant, a normal good sized chicken, and he places it in front of her. And Joke says there shouldn't be any bones in there, so just eat the whole entire thing. And Izumi starts devouring it like it's not gonna stay there very long. And Aizawa seeing this is like, "What the hell happened?" And Miss Joke says, "Oh, hi honey. Uh kind of found her favorite food." And Aizawa goes, "What do you mean you kind of found it?" And we were hungry. I was kind of making myself a snack to wait for you, and she came down looking for food. So I gave her the last piece of your chicken, and she loves your brine. And he goes, "I was saving that for tomorrow." And Izumi goes, "You snooze, you lose," and continues eating. And Aizawa looks at her like she's completely changed and grown another head. And he goes, "I know how to calm you down now. Good to know." And Miss Joke says, "I also used the last of your brine to make that." And points at the chicken and he goes, "Oh, come on. Today's just getting better and better for me, isn't it?" And Izumi goes, what's that? And points to the mask in his hand, and he goes, oh, so I got your trainer, but when you arrive at the training area, you must have a mask on 24/7. And Izumi and Miss Joke both ask at the same time, why? And Aizawa says, the air there is kind of thick with some stuff that you won't like. And Izumi goes, what do you mean? And Aizawa says, there's scents there that are very harming to normal people's noses. He can't smell anything, so he doesn't notice it. And Izumi's like, oh. So she receives this mask from Aizawa. And he pulls the sword out from behind the door and says, so I got a custom sword that should allow you to use your speed with it. And if you move fast enough, you're able to cut through things very easily. And it looks kind of like a cleaver. And he pulls out this sword, Zangetsu. If anybody knows where Zangetsu is from, you get 1,000,000,000 points that do absolutely nothing. So he then says, if you don't start designing your hero costume now, you're going to regret the design later. And she goes, oh, I already have a design. That one or that one? So this one is number 1 and this one's number 2. You guys have to tell me which one you guys like better. And Izumi goes, I already have one. I've been designing a costume ever since I was 3. And Joke and Aizawa go, okay, let's see it. And she pulls out a image that's either this one or this one. You guys have to tell me in the comments, 1 or 2. And she pulls out a beautiful picture. And she goes, I've been drawing since I was 3. I normally have to draw with either bone or... oh, yeah, just bone. And Joke says, please tell me it's not those bones. And she goes, no, 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 no. Meat bones. Because I normally got scraps, so it's just stuff that was left on the bone. And Joke goes, oh, okay. And Izumi goes, okay, I'm going to go to my room and draw some stuff. And Aizawa goes, what are you going to draw? And Izumi goes, I'm going to draw something. I'm just going to draw something. And she's opened up to Aizawa really fast because Aizawa has done nothing but keep his distance and just do what she's told him to do. So he's been very obedient towards her, and she's seen that he actually wants to help, unlike some people who are just doing it to get stuff out of it. So she's starting to open up more and more. So it is now the next day, and Izumi is walking to this place with a gas mask on. This one. And she walks to this place and walks up to the door and knocks on the door, and the giant guy who's going to teach her swordsmanship walks to the door, opens the door, and says, who is this? In a really deep voice, and Izumi says, I'm Izumi Midoriya. Aizawa said you'd teach me, and he looks at her and goes, runt. So you're a speedster, aren't you? And she goes, what's a speedster? And he goes, someone who focuses on speed. And she goes, then what are you? And he goes, I'm strength based. And she goes, oh, okay. Well, can you teach me? And he goes, yeah, on one condition. She goes, what's that condition? You bring me some of the chicken Aizawa brings. And she goes, I know, right? And they start talking about the chicken. And he tries to pat her on the back and push her in. And she immediately freaks out when he gets near her. And he goes, what's wrong? And she goes, please don't touch me. And he goes, okay, I won't touch you. And he motions her inside, and she goes inside, and she starts smelling something through the gas mask that is securely uh, tied to her face so it won't come off and it won't have any leaks. She smells something through it, and it smells strange. And the big guy says, what is your favorite weapon? And she goes, I only have one sword right now, and it's built light and small and strange to fit my fighting style. And he goes, okay, what is it? So she pulls out Zangetsu and says, this is the sword I have and Aizawa got for me. And he looks at it, he picks it up, wields it, and swings it around and says, this is a heavy sword for a little girl to be using. And she goes, it's heavy? And he looks at her like she's crazy and goes, yeah, this is heavy. This is like 20 pounds. So it's 2/3 the size of Zangetsu in Bleach. Keep that in mind. It's 2/3 the size. And she goes, really? And she takes it from him and lifts it with one hand and is like, this is light. And he goes, what is your quirk? And she goes, I'm part mutation, part swordsman. And he goes, oh, that must be it. The swordsman is mixed with the mutation, so it's easier for you to wield a sword, no matter how heavy it is. And she goes, maybe not. Who knows? So a few years have passed, and Izumi officially was adopted by Aizawa, so she's Izumi Aizawa. And she's mastered the swordsmanship that the man taught her, and every now and then she goes and has a spar with him to keep her skills up. But she has been going to school once a week to get socializing in and to try to get over her fear of people. And she's not allowed to have a sword on campus, so she takes a tanto, which is a practice sword for swordsmen, and she has that on her back, and everybody asks her why she has that, and they try touching it or touching her, and she freaks out and wields it like a master swordsman. And she goes, please don't touch me, and starts stuttering and goes, I don't like being touched. And Bakugo, who sees this creature, a hurt, broken creature, and he's going to be a very kind, caring person like Izuku was, sees this hurt creature and walks up to them and says, you gotta leave her alone, guys. Obviously there's something wrong with her and she needs to get over it. He still says everything bluntly like Bakugo does and calls everybody extras, but when he sees someone hurt and their heart aches, because I'm changing his quirk just a tiny bit. His quirk is not explosion. His quirk is called true feelings. He can get to the root of someone's true feelings to know what they're all about. And he saw her reaction and he's like, oh God, I gotta stop this. And everybody respects him because he's the person who says everything bluntly and tells you what you're truly feeling. And then you start feeling and you're like, oh, okay, I'll stop. And normally he can stop bullying before it happens, but right now they're like, oh, come on, it's just a normal touch. There's nothing wrong with it. And they try getting closer, and all of a sudden they're on the floor, beaten within an inch of their life from a freaked out animal. She's acting like a wild beast trapped in a corner. So they're beaten within an inch of her life, and she's currently in a corner, her having a panic attack. And he sees this and is like, oh crap, I gotta tell a teacher. So he runs to a teacher, and the teacher's like, yes, Bakugo, what is it? And he goes, one of the people who comes rarely, or the student that comes once a week, is having a panic attack. And the teacher's eyes widen, and she calls the principal on a direct line saying, get the dart. And the principal runs out there, sees Izumi, and shoots her with a dart gun. And Bakugo says, why did you have to use a dart gun? And she goes, there's no way to calm her down when she's starting to have a panic attack. If she's not near Aizawa or Miss Joke, or if she's not near Eraserhead or Miss Joke, there's absolutely nothing we can do. We have to knock her out. And Bakugo's like, that's really sad. And they go, that's just the gist of it. We can't do anything about it. We wish we could even talk to her and understand what's going on, but she won't open up very easily. And Bakugo goes, okay, I take that as a challenge. And the teacher looks down and goes, you have your work cut out for you this time. And he goes, I like challenges. So later that day, Izumi is waking up and she's still being carried home by Bakugo. And she sees that she feels like she's being touched, but it strangely feels good to be touched like this. And she's being carried on Bakugo's back like a piggyback ride, and she acts like she's asleep. And all of a sudden she hears Miss Joke going, oh my god, what happened? And hears this strange voice going, it's okay, she just started having a panic attack, so I brought her home because the teachers told me where she lived. And Miss Joke goes, oh, thank you. Take her up to her room. And she tells him what room she's in. And he says, okay, takes Izumi up to her room and places her on her bed, and then closes the door and leaves. And when he put Izumi on her bed, the warmth that she was feeling was gone, and all of a sudden she felt like she was stuck in the middle of a snowstorm without any clothes on, and she curled up in a ball and started shivering uncontrollably. And she's like, what the heck is this? And when Aizawa got back, Miss Joke and Bakugo were talking about Izumi and what happened. And Aizawa says, honey, I'm home. And Miss Joke says, I think Izumi needs a hug. And Aizawa goes, okay, I'll go right there. And he puts down a box and runs up to Izumi's room and knocks on the door, and she has no response, and she's still shivering uncontrollably. It's been like 2 to 3 minutes since she was left in her room, and Aizawa opens the door slowly and sees that she's shivering, and immediately walks up to her and gives her a hug. She stops shivering and she starts tearing up because she feels the warmth again. And she's gotten close to Aizawa, and this is the first time she's going to call him Dad, and she says, "Thank you, Dad." And Aizawa hears this and is like, "No problem, Izumi." And he starts patting her head and saying, "Whenever you're ready, you can come downstairs and talk with the guest." And she goes, "I know, he brought me home." And Aizawa goes, "Okay." And so he stops hugging her, and she's like, I will be down in a minute or two. And he goes, "Take your time, there's no rush." And then Aizawa walks downstairs and sits next to Miss Joke and says, "What is your quirk?" And he goes, "My quirk is the ability to feel, see, and hear the true thoughts and feelings of the person." And Aizawa says, "I see. So you've already seen them?" And he goes, "Yeah, I have." "You already felt it?" And he goes, "Yes, I have." And Izumi walks downstairs and sits in between, or sits on the couch next to Aizawa and curls up in a ball like a little cat would. But she's not little. She's like 4 foot tall. She's 7 years old and 4 foot tall. She's not little. And she's at weird angles that normally people can't get to. And she's sitting next to Aizawa. Aizawa chuckles at this and pats Izumi's head, and Izumi falls asleep like that. And Bakugo, Aizawa, and Miss Joke keep talking about Izumi. And Bakugo says, I have taken the challenge upon myself to get closer to Izumi and become her friend." And Aizawa says, "That would be great, because she doesn't have any friends." And he says, ever since she learned what really happened to her mother and how bad her father was to her, I fear that she may never have friends if they don't come and seek her out. And Bakugo goes, "I've taken upon myself to personally make sure that she has friends by the end of the middle school year, before I go into UA." And Aizawa says, "She might be joining you in UA, by the way." And Buck goes, "Ooh, that'd be great." And then he says, "Compared to her strength, I don't know if I'll be able to get in." And Aizawa goes, "Yeah. She beat a master swordsman very quickly in skill, and she's mastered 3 different styles of swordplay. And Bakugo looks at this and says, "What?" And Aizawa then clicks a button on a remote, and it brings down a rack of swords. One of them is this, and then... Hold on, I'll be right back. And the other 4 that are on the rack are these. And Bakugo asks, "What are these?" And he goes, "These are all the swords that Izumi has used and has mastered." And Bakugo goes, "What do you mean used and mastered?" And then Aizawa says, "She has mastered all 5 of these swords, and she can summon them at will too." And Katsuki is like, "Wait, she can summon swords?" And he goes, yes, she can. She is faster than the Flash. She is a master swordswoman. And she doesn't want to be in the spotlight. She is the perfect candidate to become a hero. And Izumi at this point is in deep, deep sleep. And she normally tries to sleep near Aizawa or Miss Joke because she feels more comfortable near them than alone in her room. And we're going to skip a year later when Bakugo is currently waiting for Izumi to walk out of her house. Izumi finally walks out of her house and sees Bakugo and is like, are you going to try to do this every god dang day? And he goes, yep, until you count me as one of your friends. She goes, I don't need any friends. And he goes, yeah, you do. And Izumi looks at him and sees that he looks hurt. And she asks, why'd you get hurt? And Bakugo goes, I don't have a fighting quirk, so I have to train my body to fight. And Izumi goes, I have a deal for you. If you leave me the hell alone, I'll protect you. And he goes, I say no. She goes, come on. I just want to be left alone. Bakugo goes, nope, I want to be your first friend. And she goes, huh, you're going to have to keep waiting. Because I don't call people that I don't trust friends. And he goes, oh, that hurts. I've done nothing but be nice to you. And she goes, yeah, whenever someone's nice to me, they want to get something from me. And Bakugo's like, yeah, I told you what I want. I want to be your friend. And Izumi goes, more than that. More than that. And Bakugo goes, no, I don't. And Bakugo says, I have a proposition for you. Izumi goes, what is it? Bakugo goes, I promise to always do stuff for you before me asking you to do stuff. So you get first say on what happens in our friendly relationship. And I'm always going to be there for you, and you're going to always be there for me. But I'm going to be there for you more. And she goes, huh. 2 days you're going to forget that. He goes, no. Then he says, my quirk is the ability to see, hear, and feel the true feelings of somebody. And you're longing for a friend. And she goes, no, I'm not. He goes, yeah, you are. And he starts this long monologue of what her heart wants and that what her head is telling her. And that her head is closed off her heart so she doesn't get hurt anymore from what has happened in her past. And she's starting to freak out and say, stop, shut up. And her hand's starting to grip down really hard and is about to start drawing blood. And Bakugo says, let me be that first friend. And she goes, you can be a friend if you shut the hell up. And he goes, okay, I'll take that. And Joke was overwatching this entire thing because Katsuki said he was going to do that. And joke, wanted to make sure that she didn't freak out and accidentally kill him. And so Izumi now has one friend. So at lunch that day, Izumi is going to the roof to eat alone, and Bakugo is following her. And she asks, "What the hell are you doing?" And he goes, "I want to eat with my friend." She goes, "Okay, go eat with your friend." And he says, "That's what I'm going to do. I just need to know where she eats." And Izumi goes, "God damn it. I regret saying that." A week later, Izumi is just given up on trying to get Bakugo to go away and accepted his company, so to speak. And now Bakugo, every time he's near Izumi, is not pushed away, but welcomed in slightly more and more the longer he's near her. At the end of that school year, which is 6 months, Izumi is highly welcoming of Bakugo and somewhat overprotective of him, because that's her first friend and one of her only family members. And so Bakugo says, "You need to meet my parents so you can call them family too, because they're just as nice as me." And Masaru, or I think it's Masaru, or Bakugo's father, his quirk is not what it was in canon. He is able to see the hole in people's hearts when they have a deep longing for something. And Mitsuki's quirk is to hear their pain crying from their soul and to feel it. And when Izumi walks into the door, Mitsuki's quirk, since it's really strong, starts activating, and she starts getting a headache, and Bakugo runs over and says, it's okay, I'm trying to fix it. And Mitsuki has to leave the room because Izumi's soul is crying out that it wants friends and it wants love in her life. And it's giving Mitsuki the biggest headache she's ever had because of how loud it is. And Bakugo at this time has gotten used to the loud noises because people at his school, mainly the bullies, have the loudest souls. And Masaru, seeing the void that's in Izumi's heart, walks over and kneels down and says, "Are you the one that Bakugo has been telling us about?" And she goes, "Oh, great." And Bakugo's like, "Oh, come on. You just asked me a simple question." She goes, "If he's saying about a dang cheetah and that can beat up anybody in school, then yes, that's me." And he goes, "Well, hi, and he says his name, Bakugo, and I have the quirk ability to see into the hearts of people and see their true feelings, and I see a void that's yearning to be filled." And Izumi goes, "Oh, come on. Is everybody in this damn house a freaking mentalist? Or an empath? Whatever it's called?" And Bakugo starts chuckling and says, "Yeah, everybody in this house is." And then Izumi says, "Oh, great." 5 years later, Izumi has 2 friends. One named Mina, who's very energetic and Cloud, who has slowly gotten Izumi to warm up with her because they've compared quirks, the mutation part of their quirks, and Bakugo, who is slowly trying to fill the void of no friends in Izumi's heart. And her soul has calmed down so she can actually talk to Mitsuki, and she's found out that Mitsuki has had a very rough life like she has, and Mitsuki's life was a little rougher because she didn't get the ability to leave. She had to stay. And it was both her parents that abused her. So they bonded over that, and Izumi immediately accepted Mitsuki after hearing her story. And Masaru, Bakugo's father, sees this and says, "You can call us aunt and uncle and we will talk to you later." And she goes, "Okay, bye." Walks home and sees Mina getting attacked and is listening in on the conversation. Here's the guy saying, "You're disgusting horns, you disgusting alien, and let us chop those disgusting things off." And Izumi's like, "Oh hell no." And she summons one of the swords, and it's this one, and she easily knocks them out with the hilt of the sword. And Mina, seeing nothing, she just heard a thump, thump. Then looks up and sees her savior, Izumi, and says, "Thank you, Izumi. It's always great to see you. But what are you doing out so late? I thought your dad said you had to be inside by a certain time." And she goes, "Yeah, that only counts when I'm at home or not at Bakugo's." And Mina goes, "Ooh, do I smell tea?" And she goes, "Hell no." And he goes, "Oh, okay." Mina, knowing that Izumi has very bad trust issues, if she messes up at one point, there's a chance that she could lose one of her favorite friends. And Izumi, who's starting to trust Mina and Bakugo a little bit more, starts to think, oh, not all people are bad. And I'm going to skip to the last day of middle school not middle school, high school, to where Mina, Bakugo, Izumi, and now Jiro in this friends group, are all 18 and applying for UA. And Bakugo, who has successfully made his quest to change Izumi's heart complete, he says, "Izumi, my job is done here. I would wish to be your friend still, but I have to help other people too." And she goes, "Go ahead. It's not like you're gonna be that missed." And she's stuttering because she doesn't want to push him away, and she doesn't want him to leave. And he goes, "Don't worry, I'm still gonna hang out with you. I'm still gonna be your friend. It's just I'm gonna also be helping other people." And he points to Jiro and says, "People like her who also have holes in their hearts." And Jiro goes, "What?" And Katsuki goes, "You're the last puzzle piece to fill her hole, and I need to find people to fill your hole." And Mineta, who's at the lunch cafeteria area, hears, "You filled her hole. Now it's time for me to fill your hole." Starts thinking perverted thoughts, and Izumi, feeling this stare and presence of somebody that's dangerous, starts freaking out, and she summons one of her swords. And Mineta, who sees the sword, is like, "Oh shit, I can't go there. I can't go towards there." And he starts running away. And Izumi, who still has very bad panic attacks, but not as bad as it used to be, gets an immediate hug from Jiro, Mina, and Bakugo. And it's a giant group hug with Izumi in the middle, and she starts to calm down slowly. And the sword gets put back, basically, of where it was. And they ask what happened, and she goes, "Someone was watching us, and I felt uncomfortable." And they go, "Oh, okay. Makes sense." Well, now we have 2 weeks before the entrance exams for UA. And Izumi goes, "Yeah, I'm be training my speed." And they go, "Yeah, you don't need to do that anymore." She goes, "I can always get faster." And so she picks up a bag and says, "You guys probably don't know this, but I've been putting weights in my bag." And she opens up her backpack, and it's only weights, no books, nothing else. And they go, "Where are your books and textbook stuff?" And she goes, "Oh, that's all at home." And I go, "But you just had it." She goes, "Yeah, She closes her hand like she's gripping a textbook, and all of a sudden it appears. I guess, "I can summon that stuff." And she drops it, and all of a sudden it disappears, and they go, "Wait, what?" She goes, "Yeah, I found a way to mark my textbooks." Oh. Sorry for the yawn. It's 11:27. "I found a way to mark my textbooks and other books." And they go, "How?" And he goes, uh, um, "My dad would be mad if I told you, but it's a very sneaky way of me summoning them." And Bakugo thinks, "I was told she can only summon blades." And he gives her the death stare. And she feels like, "Oh, well, I better get home. See you later, Katsuki." And Bakugo, who's not called Bakugo anymore, is called Katsuki. And he's like, "At least she's calling me by my first name." And Mina and Jiro ask him why he gave her the death stare. And he said, "Her quirk can only summon blades." And Mina and Jiro go, "Then how?" "Oh, I understand now." And when she gets home, she walks to her mom and gives her a hug and asks, "Is there any chicken?" And Miss Joke says, "No, there's no chicken yet." And Izumi looks down for a second till she hears the "yet." And then she looks up and her mouth's watering, going, "Chicken." And she still does the uh, hop up and down thing whenever she sees and hears the word chicken, because she thinks of it as I was brine on the chicken. And then Joke says, "I kind of put a secret ingredient in this one." And Izumi goes, "Ooh, Ah. And Joke says it's a secret ingredient, but you'll love this batch. And an hour later, when the chicken is done and it's cooked through, Izumi smells something that she doesn't know what it is, and the chicken is brought out to her, and all of a sudden, she takes one bite and starts acting high. Way high off her rocker. And I'm gonna leave it there. What will she do while she's high? What will happen at the UA? What will Nezlu do when he sees her? He's a mouse. Obviously, he will freak out. Predators, mice. Anyway, see you guys next time. Bye!